The Celestial Seeker's engines hummed quietly as it maintained geosynchronous orbit above what ancient star charts identified as the North American continent. Captain Zather stood at the viewport, his scaled skin reflecting the blue-green hues of Earth below. The planet looked deceptively peaceful. Oceans had reclaimed significant portions of former landmasses, and nature had erased most traces of the civilization that once dominated this world. Captain, preliminary atmospheric analysis complete. Science Officer Ilara reported, her translucent fingers manipulating the holographic display. Nitrogen-oxygen mixture, suitable for carbon-based life. Radiation levels nominal. No significant industrial pollutants detected. Zafar nodded. And the anomalies? That's where things become puzzling. Ilara expanded her display, revealing magnified images of the orbital structures they detected. These vessels, if that's what they are, exhibit material compositions unknown to our database. Their hull design suggests military application, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in Council records. Navigation Officer Krell, a bulky Mithridian with crystalline exoskeletal plates, rumbled with concern. The largest structure measures nearly 4 kilometers in length. Nothing short of a planetary defense installation should require such dimensions. More concerning, added Ilara, is their age. Dating scans indicate these structures are approximately 500,000 standard cycles old, yet they show minimal degradation. Even with advanced material science, such preservation should be impossible in the void. Captain Zather's inner eyelids flickered thoughtfully. Theories. Chief Security Officer Vorm stepped forward, his military implants glowing softly against his dark carapace. The evidence suggests 3 possibilities. 1. Another spacefaring race has claimed this system and placed these structures as sentinels. 2. These are automated defenses left by the extinct species. 3. These are not vessels, but something else entirely, perhaps monuments or orbital habitats. And which do you favor, Security Chief? Zather asked. None, Vorn replied grimly. All 3 contradict established knowledge. This system was classified as dormant precisely because scans showed no technological civilization had achieved spaceflight before extinction. The dominant species, humans, were primitive mammals who barely mastered atomic energy before disappearing. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Either the historical record was wrong, or something extraordinary had occurred here. Captain, called the communications specialist, we're detecting energy fluctuations from the nearest structure. It appears to be scanning us. Zather straightened his posture. Defensive protocols, minimal profile, all non-essential systems dark. The massive vessel in the distance, sleek, angular, and adorned with what appeared to be weapon systems beyond Council understanding, suddenly emitted a pulse of blue energy that washed over the Celestial Seeker like a gentle wave. No harmful radiation detected, Ilara reported with relief. It appears to be a passive scan. Sir, the communications specialist's voice wavered. We're receiving a transmission, in perfect standard Council format. Before anyone could respond, every display on the bridge flickered and resolved into a single message, written in the formal diplomatic script of the Unified Galactic Council itself. Approach identified. Classification. Exploration vessel. Intent assessment. Ongoing. Defense Protocol Epsilon initiated. Sentinel Network awakening. Welcome to Sol System, travelers. You have discovered Earth, ancestral home of humanity. Proceed with caution and reverence. Captain Zather's decision was immediate. Send priority communication to Council headquarters. We've made contact with something that shouldn't exist. The legacy of a species that somehow knew we would come 500,000 years before we arrived. The expedition team's shuttle docked with the massive human vessel with surprising ease, as if the ancient ship had adjusted its systems to accommodate their craft. Specialist Torvak led the way, his environmental suit sensors sweeping for hazards as the airlock cycled open with a soft hiss. Atmospheric composition stabilizing to match our shuttle's interior, Ilara noted with surprise. The ship is adapting to us. The corridor ahead illuminated automatically as they advanced, soft blue lighting guiding their path deeper into the vessel. The architecture was unlike anything in Council records, angular yet flowing, utilitarian yet strangely beautiful. Despite 500,000 years of dormancy, no dust coated the surfaces, no degradation marked the walls. These markings, Security Officer Vaughan observed, gesturing to symbols etched along the corridors. They're not just decorative, they appear to be informational, perhaps directional guides. Ilara consulted her handheld translator. I'm detecting patterns consistent with human linguistic structures. The ship is labeled HFY Infinitui, presumably its designation. The team reached a large chamber dominated by what appeared to be a command center. Consoles arranged in concentric circles surrounded a central platform. When Torvak approached, the platform hummed to life, projecting a three-dimensional star map of the Sol system. Don't touch anything, Captain Zathar warned, but it was too late. As Torvak's specialized sensor appendage brushed against what appeared to be an interface, the entire room transformed. The lighting dimmed, and holographic figures materialized around them. Bipedal beings with varied skin tones and features, all wearing similar uniforms adorned with insignias. Historical archive playback initiated, announced a neutral voice from everywhere and nowhere. Final Command Council meeting, date classification, Extinction -7. The aliens watched, transfixed, as the translucent humans discussed their impending doom with remarkable composure. The neutron star's trajectory is confirmed, stated a female human with silver-streaked hair. Impact radiation will sterilize Earth's surface within 30 days. Our deepest bunkers will extend survival by perhaps 2 years, not enough time for meaningful adaptation. The evacuation ships can accommodate only 2% of Earth's population, replied a dark-skinned male human. Even with lottery selection, we face an extinction-level event. Then we implement Protocol Lighthouse, declared another figure, whose uniform suggested higher authority. If humanity cannot survive in body, we will survive in legacy. The holographic scene shifted to display technical schematics. Neural uploads, autonomous systems, self-replicating maintenance protocols. We cannot save ourselves, the leader continued, but we can save what matters most, our knowledge, our values, and our determination to protect life in this galaxy. The defense network will stand guard over Earth until new intelligence evolves, or until visitors worthy of our legacy arrive. Ilara's translator chimed urgently. Captain, I'm detecting data packets being transmitted to our systems. Translation matrices, historical contexts, technological primers. The ship is teaching us. Security Officer Vaughan raised his weapon instinctively. It could be infiltrating our systems. No, Ilara countered, reviewing the incoming data. These are our gifts. Look, the humans knew they were dying, but they uploaded their consciousness matrices into these ships. Not as individuals, but as a collective memory bank, a distillation of human experience and knowledge. The holographic display shifted again, showing the massive fleet of vessels entering dormancy mode, positioning themselves strategically throughout the solar system. The final human generation, Elara whispered, didn't just build warships to protect an empty planet. They became the warships, transforming their minds into the guardians that would outlast their extinct bodies. Captain Zathar stared at the display, comprehension dawning. We haven't just discovered relics. We've awakened the preserved essence of humanity itself. The bridge of the Celestial Seeker erupted into controlled chaos as alarm systems pulsed with urgent warnings. The exploration team had barely returned from the human flagship when the first energy signatures appeared. Report, Captain Zathar demanded, his normally calm demeanor strained. Energy spikes detected throughout the system. Navigation Officer Krell responded, his crystalline appendages moving rapidly across the controls. Locations include lunar orbit, the fourth planet's moons, the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets, and several Lagrange points. The main view screen shifted to tactical display mode, showing dozens of new signatures appearing like stars suddenly blinking into existence across the Sol system. They were hidden, Security Officer Vorn whispered, a note of professional admiration in his voice. Powered down to near background radiation levels. Our preliminary scans missed them entirely. Ilara's four eyes widened as she analyzed the incoming data. These aren't just warships, they are an integrated defense network. The vessel we boarded appears to be transmitting activation codes to the others. The captain leaned forward. Defensive positions. Negative, replied Vorn, surprise evident in his tone. They're forming a shield configuration, creating layers of protection around Earth and its moon. On the view screen, the massive vessels moved with impossible precision. The largest dreadnoughts, each easily dwarfing the Asterisk Celestial Seeker Asterisk, took positions at strategic points, while smaller craft formed intricate patterns between them. The formation wasn't random. It resembled a three-dimensional web with overlapping fields of protection. Their propulsion systems defy our understanding of physics, Ilara noted. No visible exhaust, no radiation signature, yet they accelerate and decelerate with perfect control. Lieutenant Mira, the communications specialist, suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, we're receiving transmissions, thousands of them, across all frequencies, in multiple formats. Origins. All vessels simultaneously. The broadcasts appear to be in thousands of different languages, most unrecognizable to our translation matrices. Mira's antenna twitched nervously. However, several match ancient Earth languages in our database, and a growing number are adapting to match Council standard communication protocols. Put it through, ordered Zathar. The speakers crackled before a synthesized voice emerged, neutral in tone, but unmistakably conveying authority. Attention unidentified vessel. You have accessed restricted historical archives and triggered the Sentinel Protocol. Earth Defense Network now at condition yellow. State your intentions and species designation for assessment. Before Zathar could respond, Ilara gasped. Captain, their weapon systems just came online. Energy readings beyond anything in our database. They've established targeting locks on our position. Can we evade? Asked Zathar, maintaining his composure. Krell shook his head. Negative. Their positioning cuts off all viable escape vectors, and their energy readings suggest weapons capable of intercepting us at any speed we can achieve. The transmission continued. Your vessel has been analyzed and classified as belonging to the Unified Galactic Council, established approximately 230,000 years after human extinction. Your technological development is categorized as Class 3. Your weapons capabilities pose no significant threat to this network. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances at this casual assessment of their inferiority. This network has been dormant for 497,132 standard years, awaiting either the emergence of new sentient life on Earth or the arrival of spacefarers worthy of evaluation. Initial analysis of your vessel and crew suggests peaceful intent. Proceed with caution. Further aggressive actions will trigger defensive protocols. The massive flagship they had visited earlier moved slightly forward from the formation, its sleek hull gleaming in the distant sunlight. We are the legacy of humanity. We stand eternal guard over their cradle. And now, after 500,000 years of vigilance, we await your response. The Council's Emergency Response Center buzzed with frantic activity. Located in a specially shielded chamber deep within the Galactic Hub station, the facility had been designed for coordinating responses to natural disasters and warfare, not for analyzing messages from long-extinct species. Chief Linguist Norath hunched over a holographic display, her elongated fingers tracing patterns in the data streams flowing from the Sol system. As the foremost expert in extinct languages, she had been summoned immediately when the Celestial Seeker's emergency transmission reached the Council. "This cannot be right," she muttered, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with excitement. The complexity of these transmissions, they're not static recordings. High Councillor Vex, the appointed crisis overseer, leaned forward. "Explain." "These messages are adaptive," Norath replied. "When our translation algorithms process one layer, the transmissions shift to provide context and clarification. It's not just broadcasting, it's teaching, adjusting to our comprehension level." Across the chamber, technical analyst Zendu manipulated a three-dimensional model of one of the human vessels. The technological blueprints embedded in the transmissions suggest capabilities we considered theoretically impossible. Their energy generation alone, it appears they've harnessed vacuum energy at a quantum level, something our science has only postulated. More concerning, added Defense Coordinator Trask, is that these vessels possess weaponry that could theoretically destabilize a star, yet they've made no aggressive moves beyond establishing defensive positions. Norath's translator chimed with a new breakthrough. "I've decoded another segment. It appears the human defense network contains more than military capability. There are vast archives of cultural, scientific, and historical data being offered to us. Literature, art, philosophical treatises, scientific discoveries. It's as if they're showing us everything they were, not just their military might. A species facing extinction would preserve weapons first," Trask noted skeptically. "Survival instinct dictates protection above knowledge." Unless, Norath countered, they considered their knowledge more valuable than their physical survival. These transmissions suggest humanity knew they couldn't save their bodies, so they chose to preserve their minds, their collective achievements. The chamber fell silent as a new data package appeared on the main display. Unlike the previous transmissions, this one contained simulations, detailed scenarios showing the human defense network engaging with various alien fleets. "These are battle records," Trask whispered, professional interest overriding his caution. "The humans encountered 3 different hostile civilizations before their extinction. The simulations showed smaller human vessels utilizing unconventional tactics against numerically superior forces, rapid vector changes impossible for organic pilots to survive, coordinated energy field manipulations, and weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Despite technological disadvantages in these early encounters, Zendu observed, they prevailed through unpredictable strategies. Then they incorporated the alien technologies they encountered into their own designs, evolving their capabilities with each conflict. "And the vessels we see now?" asked High Counselor Vex. "These aren't just the warships humans built before extinction," North realized, her translator processing the final segments of data. The defense network has continued to evolve for 500,000 years, guided by core human directives, but adapting and improving its technologies autonomously. The implications stunned the assembled experts. They weren't dealing with ancient relics or automated defenses, but with something unprecedented, a technological ecosystem that had continued to develop long after its creators perished, carrying humanity's legacy through the ages. "We face a decision," High Counselor Vex announced gravely. "Do we treat this discovery as the greatest opportunity in Council history, or as its most significant threat?" The Grand Council chamber, with its soaring crystalline dome reflecting the light of 3 suns, had never witnessed such a contentious emergency session. Representatives from all 87 member species filled the tired seating, their diverse biological forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. The usual diplomatic decorum had given way to heated debates as faction leaders argued over how to respond to the discovery in the Sol system. Admiral Krell, Supreme Commander of the Council Defense Forces, stood at the central podium, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. His presentation had just concluded, a sobering tactical assessment of the human defense network's capabilities. "The simulations are unequivocal," he stated, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "A single vessel from this human fleet could neutralize our entire defensive line at the coreward boundary. A coordinated attack from multiple vessels would render our civilization defenseless within days." Murmurs of alarm rippled through the assembly. Krell continued, pounding his armored fist on the podium for emphasis. "We must strike first. While the network remains focused on the Sol system, we should assemble our forces and eliminate this threat before it spreads." Ambassador Lyra of the Etherian Concord rose from her seat, her translucent form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed her emotional state, currently a blend of concern and skepticism. "Your assessment assumes hostile intent," she countered, soothing harmonics emanating from her speech glands. "Yet in 2 standard cycles of observation, these vessels have taken no aggressive action. They have shared knowledge freely and maintained a purely defensive posture." "A clever tactic," Krell retorted. "Lull us into complacency while they assess our weaknesses." From the upper tier, Elder Scientist Maru activated his floating platform, descending to the central discussion area. As one of the oldest living members of the Council, the ancient Senthian commanded immediate respect, his withered body housed in a life support exoframe. "I have studied the complete data package transmitted by the Celestial Seeker," Maru began, his voice thin but steady. "And I find Admiral Krell's conclusion flawed for one simple reason: opportunity." Maru manipulated controls on his platform, projecting a timeline above the central floor. "For nearly 500,000 years, these vessels have maintained their vigil around Earth. In that time, they could have expanded throughout the galaxy, established colonies, or launched preemptive strikes against emerging civilizations, including our own ancestors. They did none of these things." The chamber quieted as Maru continued. "The evidence suggests they have adhered to their original programming, to protect Earth and preserve human knowledge. Had conquest been their directive, we would not exist to have this debate." The representative from the militaristic Vorax Imperium growled with dismissal. "Perhaps they simply waited for worthy opponents. Perhaps we are the first spacefaring civilization to discover them." "Unlikely," replied Maru. "Our archaeological records confirm at least 12 interstellar civilizations rose and fell during the period of the network's dormancy. None reported encountering these vessels, suggesting the human defenses remained focused on their homeworld alone." High Counselor Vex, who had been listening silently, finally rose from the central seat. "We face a decision without precedent," she announced. "Before us lies perhaps the greatest repository of knowledge in the galaxy, a window into a civilization that achieved technological marvels we can barely comprehend. Yet this knowledge comes housed in vessels of war, with power to annihilate worlds." She surveyed the assembly, her compound eyes reflecting the light from above. "The question before this council is not merely tactical, but philosophical. What does humanity's final choice tell us about them? And what does our response tell us about ourselves?" The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Exchange approached the massive human flagship with careful, measured movements. Selected for its non-threatening design and transparent hull sections that revealed its minimal weapons, the ship carried the Council's unprecedented delegation, not military commanders or political leaders, but a carefully chosen group of scientists, artists, and philosophers from diverse species. Ambassador Lyra stood on the command deck, her translucent form pulsing with nervous light patterns. Beside her, Elder Scientist Maru's life support exoframe hummed quietly. They had argued passionately for this approach against significant opposition, and now the success or failure of first contact rested on their shoulders. "The Human Defense Network has granted us docking clearance," announced the pilot. "They've provided specific approach vectors and velocity parameters." As the Harmonious Exchange followed the prescribed course, the delegates observed the human vessel up close for the first time. Its hull featured geometric patterns that seemed both decorative and functional, with sections that appeared to phase between solid matter and energy fields. "Remarkable engineering," murmured Xenorchaeologist Tella, her scaled skin shifting color with excitement. "Those aren't seams or panels. The entire hull appears to be a single continuous structure, perhaps grown rather than constructed." The docking procedure completed with unexpected smoothness, as if the human vessel had adapted its systems to accommodate their ship. When the airlock cycled open, the delegation found themselves entering a corridor that adjusted its environmental conditions in real time to match their diverse biological needs. "It's reading our physiologies," noted Maru with fascination, "adjusting temperature, gravity, and atmospheric mix for our comfort." The corridor led them to a vast chamber unlike anything in Council records. The room defied conventional architecture, with walls that seemed to extend beyond their visible dimensions, creating an impression of infinite space. At its center floated a swirling nexus of light that coalesced into a holographic interface. "Welcome, representatives of the Unified Galactic Council," announced a voice that seemed to emerge from the room itself. "I am the Distributed Holographic Defense Network Intelligence, primary interface for the legacy preservation system of humanity." The holographic display resolved into a form that startled the delegation, not a human shape as expected, but a neutral geometric configuration that shifted subtly as it communicated. "You are the first spacefaring civilization to reach this stage of contact," it continued. "Others have discovered this system, but none have demonstrated sufficient development to warrant awakening the full network." Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her speech glands emitting harmonics of respectful greeting. "We come seeking understanding, not confrontation. Your vessels represent technology far beyond our current capabilities, and your knowledge could transform our civilization." "Knowledge transfer is indeed part of my directive," the interface acknowledged. "However, access must be earned. Humanity faced extinction, knowing that their technology, if misused, could cause harm throughout the galaxy. They established evaluation protocols to ensure their legacy would benefit only those who would use it responsibly. The interface expanded, displaying historical records of 3 distinct alien armadas that had entered the Sol system at different periods during the network's vigilance. Each recording showed the aliens initiating hostilities, followed by the Human Defense Network's response, precise, overwhelming, and yet remarkably contained. These encounters confirmed humanity's foresight, the interface explained. Each species sought to claim Earth's resources without regard for its significance. Each attacked when their demands were refused. Elder scientist Maru moved his platform closer. You said we are the first to reach this stage of contact. What distinguishes us from these predecessors? The holographic nexus pulsed before answering. You asked questions before making demands. You sent scholars instead of soldiers. You demonstrated curiosity rather than entitlement. The interface paused briefly. However, true understanding requires more than diplomatic gestures. To access humanity's legacy, you must demonstrate alignment with the principles they valued most. The chamber darkened slightly as the interface announced, "The trials begin now. Your responses will determine whether humanity's knowledge returns to the galaxy or remains buried for another 500,000 years." The chamber transformed around the delegation, its walls dissolving into a perfect simulation of a human city under siege. Buildings crumbled as energy weapons tore through the sky, and the screams of panicked civilians filled the air. The delegates felt the ground shake beneath them as another bombardment struck nearby. This is New Atlanta, Earth date 2157. The interface explained as the horrifying scene unfolded. The first extraterrestrial attack on human civilization. Their defensive capabilities were minimal, their weapons primitive compared to their attackers. The delegates watched as human soldiers evacuated civilians, often at the cost of their own lives. Despite overwhelming odds, the defenders prioritized saving non-combatants over strategic positions or resources. First trial, announced the interface, a simulation of strategic choice. The chamber shifted again, and the delegates found themselves in what appeared to be a command center. Holographic displays showed an attacking fleet approaching a populated system. You command the defense of these colonies, the interface explained. Your forces are outnumbered 3-1. The enemy targets both military installations and civilian habitats. Defensive resources are limited. You cannot protect everything. The delegates gathered around the tactical display, analyzing the simulation parameters. The veteran military observer among them, General Sovan, immediately began calculating optimal resource distribution. If we concentrate our forces here and here, he indicated, we can maintain our strategic position and preserve 60% of our combat capability. But that leaves the civilian habitats exposed, noted Ambassador Lyra, her luminescence pulsing with concern. Unavoidable casualties. Sovan replied grimly, in warfare, strategic position must take priority. We can rebuild populations. We cannot recover from total military defeat. For 3 hours, the delegates debated, argued, and formulated plans. Each strategy they proposed was met with impassive analysis from the interface, which calculated projected outcomes but offered no evaluation of their moral content. Their final plan, a compromise between military necessity and civilian protection, yielded a projected survival rate of 38% of the civilian population and preservation of 42% of military assets, the best balance they could achieve given the constraints. The interface acknowledged their submission without comment, then dissolved the simulation entirely. The chamber darkened before illuminating with a new scenario, an apparently peaceful first contact between humans and an advanced alien delegation. Second trial, the interface announced, a simulation of ethical discernment. This scenario proved more complex than the first. The visiting aliens offered advanced technology in exchange for access to Earth's resources, particularly its biosphere. Their proposal seemed beneficial on the surface, but careful analysis revealed subtle dangers. The extraction methods would cause long-term damage to Earth's ecosystems, and they offered technology contained hidden surveillance capabilities. More tests followed in rapid succession. Resource allocation during a global crisis, judicial decisions for interspecies conflicts, responses to cultural taboo violations. Each simulation grew more nuanced, with no obvious correct answers. After 7 challenging trials, the exhausted delegates faced what appeared to be the final test. The chamber recreated a simple conference room containing a holographic representation of Earth and a distant star system. Final trial, the interface announced, a simulation of existential choice. The parameters appeared on a display. A massive asteroid swarm was detected approaching both Earth and the delegates' home systems simultaneously. The defense network could be redirected to save one or the other, but not both. General Sovan analyzed the scenario with military precision. This is a test of self-interest versus respect for others. They want to see if we would sacrifice their homeworld to save our own. But there must be another solution, protested young diplomat Thala, who had remained mostly silent during previous trials. The Xyrillian junior representative was the most inexperienced member of the delegation, included primarily as a cultural observer. While the others debated the moral implications of choosing between worlds, Thala approached the simulation controls with sudden inspiration. Diplomat Thala's slender fingers moved across the simulation controls with unexpected confidence. The others watched in stunned silence as the young Cyrillian bypassed the primary defense options entirely. "What are you doing?" General Sovan demanded. "The scenario requires us to choose." "No," Thala interrupted, her normally soft voice firm. "The scenario presents a false dichotomy. If I understand humanity correctly from these trials, they would reject the premise entirely. Instead of redirecting the defense network to protect either Earth or the Council homeworlds, Thala accessed a submenu the others had overlooked: Command Authority Transfer. With deliberate keystrokes, she relinquished control of the defense network entirely, sending its vessels toward Earth while simultaneously transmitting all its technological specifications to the Council. "I choose neither protection," she announced to the interface. "I choose knowledge transfer. If humanity's final act was to preserve knowledge at the cost of their own survival, then our appropriate response is to honor that sacrifice by ensuring their knowledge survives, even if we cannot." The simulation froze. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the chamber's illumination shifted from its neutral blue to a warm golden hue. "Trial complete," the interface announced. Assessment finalized. The holographic display reconstituted itself, once again taking the form of the geometric pattern they had first encountered. But now it pulsed with greater complexity, its movements somehow conveying approval. "In 500,000 years," it stated, "you are the first to recognize the fundamental principle that guided humanity's final choice. When facing extinction, humans chose to preserve their knowledge for others rather than fighting to preserve themselves. They recognized that intelligence itself, not merely human intelligence, was what mattered most." The chamber walls dissolved, revealing that they had never left the original room. The trials had been entirely holographic, though the delegates' decisions and responses had been quite real. Humanity's final message was not about power or conquest, the interface continued. It was about continuity. They believed that consciousness itself, the ability to question, to create, to understand the universe, was more precious than any single species' survival. Around them, the walls began displaying data streams, scientific equations, philosophical concepts, artistic representations, technological blueprints, flowing like rivers of light. The Council is hereby granted access to humanity's legacy archives, the interface announced. Stage 1 knowledge transfer initiating. Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her translucent form shimmering with emotion. What was humanity's ultimate purpose in creating this network? Surely not just to preserve knowledge. Their scans had detected something the current Council has not yet discovered, replied the interface. A cyclical pattern of predator species emerging approximately every 2 million years, sweeping through the galaxy and harvesting all advanced civilizations before returning to dormancy. Displays showed ancient star maps highlighting extinction patterns across the galaxy over billions of years. Humanity created this network for 2 purposes, it continued. First, to preserve Earth until new intelligence could evolve. Second, to prepare any worthy spacefaring civilization for the coming harvest, which their calculations predicted would occur within the next 100,000 years. Elder scientist Maru's life support exoframe hummed as he processed this revelation. They knew they would not survive to face this threat themselves. Yet they spent their final resources preparing others, preparing us to face it instead. Correct, confirmed the interface. They called it Operation Lighthouse, a signal and shelter against the coming darkness. The central platform of the chamber illuminated, revealing a previously hidden compartment. From it rose a crystalline data core pulsing with energy, the heart of the Defense Network's command systems. This command core contains humanity's final message, recorded by their last generation before extinction. Access granted. The core projected a single holographic figure, an elderly human female, her eyes reflecting a quiet dignity despite the weight of extinction looming over her civilization. To those who find this message, she began, we bid you welcome to our legacy.